We now move ahead to our next session, which is a panel discussion. To begin with, the first prominent personality in our panel discussion is Mr. Vasant Mehta. Mr. Vasant Mehta is the founder and senior partner of Messrs. V. Ramesh Chandra and Company, Mumbai, India Private Limited. Mr. Mehta grew up in the family business, which went through many facets. He joined the Gem and Jewelry Export Promotion Council as an honorary member in the year 1988, and consequently held several important positions, including that of a vice chairman of the council. In 2008, he was elected as chairman to serve until 2010. He has also been a senior member of the Banking, Insurance and Taxation Committee for over 15 years. He has served as a member of the committee of the Bharat Diamond Bourse and has been an advisor to the legal committee. Currently, Mr. Vasant also serves as Vice President of the International Diamond Manufacturers Association. He has been an active participant in the formation and implementation of the Kimberley process system. Currently, he is also the chairman of the Indian Institute of Gems and Jewelry. He also serves as an honorary director in National Skill Development Corporation and in Export Credit Guarantee Corporation. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Vasant Mehta. Our next panelist for the day is Mr. Sanjay Kothari. Mr. Sanjay Kothari comes from a background of medical sciences and is a man with extraordinary leadership qualities. He belongs to the genre of people who believe in time is money. Currently, Mr. Sanjay Kothari has been elected as vice chairman for the tenure of 2 years till 2012. His leadership qualities saw him being elected as the chairman for 4.5 years, which is the longest period served by any chairman of the council. He has held various positions in the council, including being convener, exhibitions for many years, before becoming convener, promotions and marketing. Under his able leadership, the council initiated Anant Diamond Promotion Program, which was also the India International Jewelry Week, India's first ever jewelry week. He has also led or been member of various gem and jewelry industry delegations organized by the council to countries such as Latin America and Middle East. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Sanjay Kothari. Our third panelist is Mr. Manish Jeloka. He is the head of Consumer Bank Treasury for India and South Asia region, Standard Chartered Bank, India. He has been with Standard Chartered Bank for over 4 years. He has a rich experience over 19 years in fixed income, ALM, capital markets, and foreign exchange. He has earlier worked with American Express Bank and Citibank. His area of expertise is treasury solutions for institutional as well as SME and private bank clients. I would also like to take this opportunity to call him on stage, Mr. Manish Jeloka. Ladies and gentlemen. I would also like to invite our previous presenters, Mr. Dr. Suresh Surana on stage. Mr. Surana is just away, he'll be here with us in a minute. Mr. Ajit Tolani and Mr. Nishant Shah. Kindly join us on stage. Before we begin the presentation, the panel discussion would be incomplete without introducing this maverick who needs no introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Martin Rappaport. The stage is yours, gentlemen.
Okay, we have gone through some very long, detailed, difficult, legal discussions this morning. And, part of this is, well, we're living in the real world. When we started this Rappaport conferences, it was 2002. It was after the 9/11 catastrophe. It was in New York. And we introduced the first people talking about synthetic diamonds. And in those days, people said, synthetic diamonds? It's not a problem. It's nothing. Now, the problem with Rappaport conferences is that we're futuristic. We look at issues that are going to hit you, maybe hurt you, in a year or two. And what we try to do is to give people a heads up on what's going to happen. Now, my perspective on India in terms of the regulatory environment is very bad. Essentially, the Rappaport, my view is that the tax authorities in India are essentially a bunch of thieves. They see someone has something, and they want to reach out their hand and grab it. It's like me and a chocolate cake on the table. Maybe I know I shouldn't eat it, but the chocolate cake is there, and I can't resist putting my hand out and grabbing the cookies. The tax authorities in India, or the regulatory environment in India, over the past year, from an American foreign investor, has been disgusting. If I'm talking about retroactive taxation, which is even against the American Constitution, the government didn't like the court case. Let's change the laws. Let's charge taxes from 1955. This is disgusting. This is absurd. This is sickening. Then if you deal with the tax authorities and they take your money, you can win it in court until you get it back. My point is that whereas it's nice to think that the tax people are simply nice people wanting to interact with you, and if you follow the laws, you're okay, my challenge to Vasant and Sanjay is, what are you doing to stop these thieves? Because my view is, as the tax people look at the rich diamond people and say, how can we screw these people? How can we grab their money? You put up a slide that showed all kinds of penalties on transfer pricing, where they don't give you, you earn money in one company, and then they want to double tax you. That's not goodwill. That's not someone from the taxes saying, we want you to pay fair taxes. That's someone looking at you like you're a chocolate cake and saying, how can I grab money from these people? Because I see if I use transfer pricing domestically, I now have a new way to kind of get money from these people. So what I'm asking here is the naive approach of, well, you know, they just want their fair taxes and that's it, versus the greedy approach. Here are these diamond people with a lot of money. How can we put our hands in their pockets? So what I want to know is, what is the council and the diamond trade doing to say to the tax authorities, enough is enough. We'll pay our fair share of prices, but there has to be a red line. There has to be some basis where the tax people realize that we are not just people to be taken advantage of. So, sorry to be so strong, okay? But I would like to pass those questions to Sanjay and Vasant. Maybe I'm wrong. Correct me.
You are not wrong or not right also. Enough of things you have told about the Indian government and India, but let me tell you that we are first Indian, then businessmen. Whatever tax authorities have talked about in this last budget particularly, they are trying to re-look into it, whether it is GAR or the retrospective effect of taxation and all that. So don't be so harsh and so impulsive on the Indian government. They are trying to take care of it, and probably all of them are better mind rather than us. And I would probably sound a little bit more Indian, and people may or may not like it, but let me tell you that ask yourself how much taxes you have paid in this last 30 years being in the diamond industry. Ask yourself and be conscious and be morally right how much taxation has been, how much taxes we have paid to the Indian government, and what is our loyalty as an Indian to the India. Let us ask that and then look into it, what government is doing and all that. That is besides the point. But now, as far as the council is concerned, we have been trying our best to see that to avoid all these issues, all these problems, you imply the turnover tax regime. And if you have this turnover tax regime, probably we will have an easy life. The Indian government tried to do it, in principally accepted this turnover tax regime. But the only problem was that they felt that the profit margin in India, as far as diamond industry is concerned, was 8% net profit, and they wanted to tax on us on that, which is not true. So we have been fighting since last 2-3 years. ELP has been the main consulting firm for us, and from 8%, after a lot of discussions, they brought down to 6%. But it is still on paper, and I was just now talking before 10 minutes to Nishant, because the present finance minister was a person who brought this principally, accepted it by going all around the world and studying the Indian industry vis-a-vis Belgium and Israel and Dubai. We never wanted a Dubai-like regime of zero taxation, but we said that it has to be a competitive as far as Indian taxation system is concerned. And probably we will have to try again. And if they bring it to say 3%, then probably we will have a easy way out and a smooth ride. That is the issue. But to talk about them, they are a bunch of thieves and they are trying to grab us is not, Martin, proper according to me. I'm sorry about it, but
no.
people may or may not like it, but that is not proper.
I'm sorry for being so controversial on this, but the real question is, first of all, you're right. Maybe in the past, the industry has not paid sufficient taxes, so now the pendulum swings the other way, which I can understand. I think that now the industry is legitimizing. I like to say that the diamond industry is on the slippery slope of legitimacy. Step by step, we're declaring our income, we're dealing with anti-money laundering, we're dealing with Kimberley process, we're dealing with all of this paperwork and all of this compliance that never existed 10 years ago. But the reason that I thought it was important to have a conference on compliance is I see it as one of the major threats. Not just it's nice to pay taxes, threats like synthetic diamonds or like blood diamonds, threats to the industry, because a lot of the people in the industry, in the informal structure, are very far away from the type of compliance you've been putting up on the board here. To them, it's like a whole other world. So I think we're going to get side-blinded by a lot of these tax issues. All of a sudden, I mean, the sophisticated companies, the companies that are at this conference, listening, having the patience to listen to these presentations, I guess you'll be okay. But you have, what, 1 million people in this industry here? Do we really honestly think that all 1 million people are going to become experts in domestic transfer pricing? Or you follow what I'm saying? I mean, I see this as a threat. And I don't mean to talk so harsh, but I just really want to put it on the table. What can we do to facilitate a relationship with government where if you say to me, Sanjay, look, really the governments are nice people, they really, well, I think that, well,
they're not a bunch of thieves.
Well, let's just say friend or foe. I think there's an adversarial relationship often when you sit down with someone in the tax department, and I think they feel or they felt they can do whatever they want. They had very little constraints. So I think the idea that we can negotiate with them or talk to them, because they will scare, they will shut down. I'm looking at the global environment from an international perspective. I'm not talking about international companies suffering from the Vodafone problem, but I'm saying normal companies, Indian companies, we're an Indian company, they're going to reduce their activity. So all I'm saying is I apologize if I'm a little too strong, but the truth of the matter is I think it's a threat. Is there anything we can do, Vasant, to make it more brotherly love between us and the tax authority?
Martin, first of all, thank you for bringing this conference here for the first time. I have been to a few of your conferences abroad, and I think you have done a right thing as your commitment to India is increasing. And if I had not known you personally so well, I would have said that this outburst was the only reason for this conference bringing here. But I know you have other issues on this thing. Having said that, I think, as Sanjay has rightly put it, you are right and wrong both. When I say wrong, I see that you have brought your company here, you have already got so many people under this thing. But one thing that is missing, that each one of our diamond companies here, they are not experts, and they don't need to be experts. If we were experts, people like Suranas and ELP wouldn't have so much business on their own. So on the taxation matters, I think there are rules to be followed. You come from a country where, in US, where the laws are simplified, where people are more intelligent or educated to know the laws and all that, and they follow the rules, this thing. Although the diamond industry world over, be it in New York or in Belgium or in Israel, has some kind of, compromises. And that is where the governments of all these countries are after the diamond people. As for in the AML also, if you have seen, diamond and jewelry industry has been put as a caution list, on the caution list. So, when you are here, you have to follow the rules which are here. The rules are not very difficult. It's only a matter of studying the rules. If you are sitting in New York and then people come to you and say, this is the problem, suddenly you get very agitated and you start blaming the Indian government. It is not so bad. It could be a little bad. Taxation authorities all over the world are put to question whether they are doing the right thing or not. But I think you will, if you would stay more in India, you will find it much easier than many other countries in the world.
If I may add here, we really have a great opportunity. I think, right now we have a great opportunity because the safe harbor rules are being framed just now. And by 31st December, the government of India will be announcing that what is the acceptable margin for all the industries for transfer pricing purposes. I think if we can get our act right there by proper lobbying, and I'm sure you're already working on that, but I'm saying that is again an opportunity for us. And I think right now government is on the defensive. I mean, all the criticism what Martin has talked about everywhere. I mean, I just did a conference in the UK across basically several cities along with HSBC. Everywhere there is the same reaction. The foreign investors are getting frustrated. So I think this is a time to make government see reason that there is a reasonable profit margin which should be not by some administrative fancy what they feel is a margin, but the real industry margin. If that is notified, lot of the transfer pricing issues, in domestic, international, will be taken care of. If they say that in diamond industry, if you need a 2% margin or 3% margin, jewelry you need 6% margin, you then have to just follow that norm, and then you will be probably 90% of the problems will be avoided, in my view.
I think that's very positive. Look, I started, I'm going to be with you guys, I started out kicking here. And I must say to you that from the Indian perspective, we're an Indian company. 80 people, millions of dollars invested in India, no Jewish people, Israeli people, American people employed by Rappaport India, all Indians. So I can assure you that any pain we're feeling here is directly Indian on Indian, okay? But, this issue, I think the solution that I'm hearing here, which is important, is some kind of a tax on the volume of your transactions, like Israel, like Belgium, okay? And I can assure you America is not an easy place either. The real question, though, is the attitude of government towards the industry. That's the real question. Because, like the customs man spoke really beautifully. I would wish that the tax authorities or the previous Minister of Finance had that. Now, when I say things very strong, trust me that I'm reflecting an international consensus. I'm sure if you spoke to the head of Vodafone, he would even speak harsher than me. If you read The Economist editorials, you would see what we're talking about. So the question is if I look at the Indian government and I'm a little concerned because of the way things have been developing. 50% of your money has to be in rupees. Now this is a pretty regressive, we'll talk to the bankers, this is not the idea of a forward moving, but I don't want you to criticize. Solutions, one, volume tax, reasonably cost, should solve a lot of our problems, okay? And the question that I would like to ask our ELP guys, tell me, my rabbi says to me, he says, I don't care how religious you are. He says, are you getting more religious or less religious? How is our relationship with the tax authorities? Do they see us and say, let's cooperate, let's work together? Are we developing a better relationship? Because I think we had a dip. I think it used to be pretty good. Then I think we had a little bit of a dip in the relationship where there was the sense that, I know the council was working very hard on this volume tax, and I know that it didn't work, and they took half of your stuff and the other half. How is the relationship? How are the tax people seeing the diamond industry? Do they want to be cooperative? Are we getting fuzzy, warm feelings from them now that there's a new finance minister? And what's the outlook for us?
Now, let me speak on this experience and take forward what Sanjay was mentioning, that we had taken up this turnover tax initiative. And in fact, to put that with a positive mindset, we had actually visited various other countries and brought in the jurisdictions, like, what are the laws existing there, and how can they bring in turnover tax. And actually we found out that India has an evolved tax system, legal system. In some of the other jurisdictions, the legal system hasn't evolved that much. Now, just because the legal system has evolved to a certain extent, and therefore you call it that, it's becoming a noose around your neck or something, I don't think that's true. Now, that is how the tax authorities have also been thinking, that, we have certain system, we have to follow that system. That system has been being followed. So, just for one industry, we create a different system and give them, we bring about an exception for certain reasons, that is true. And that is how this whole, and therefore in India, because of this evolvement of the system, everything goes through a certain procedure before it can be implemented. In addition to that, it's always that there is, there is some stale mango in a basket. And if that can create some sort of an apprehension, no government authority or no department wants to come across that they left out something while giving a benefit for something else. So they have to create if there should be no loopholes left out. It has to be completely blocked. And therefore, maybe it's taking time. But otherwise, yeah, the relationship has been because of the apprehensions that they've been having in their minds. And if those are cleared, I'm sure that, the relations would keep improving.
Is there goodwill? Is there goodwill?
The department came across to us to say that you are saying it's between 2 to 3%. We have examples where the margins have raised much beyond. And on an average, the margin was coming to around 8 to 10%. That's how they came to 8%. But there have been margins at 25 and 26% as well. So they are like, there are some entities who are making these margins. Then on what basis do you ask us to commit at 3%? So, they also have their grounds to put forth. It's not that they are just giving us a deaf ear.
So there's certainly legitimate reasons why the tax authorities would, have to work this through. But my bigger question is, what's our relationship like? Can you say to me, I don't mind being wrong. I think that would be great if I was wrong. And maybe I am wrong. But if you guys say to me, look, the government guys are really okay. They have to check some things out, but they're not out to get us. They're not looking at our business and just wanting to put their hands in our pockets and extract the most that they can. They want to work together with us and everything. That would be a very comforting statement. And if that is true, I would love to hear if that. What's our relationship like?
Martin, the relationship has been really good. If the relationship with the government, between the government and the industry would not have been good, the industry would not have grown to such an extent. Since last 40 years, there are stalwarts sitting here. What were the difficulties in 1970s and 60s? Arun Bhai would be the first person to tell us, and what it has come. It takes time for government also to understand, and slowly, the way we go and explain the things, probably it falls in line. You had your own difficulties when the certification of diamonds, from January or March. Yeah, so we have been able to resolve the issues. And they are the people who takes a little bit of more time compared to probably other countries. But the relationship has been good. They want industry as much as we want government. Both of them are working in close coordination. And if there is any genuine difficulty where the problems are there, for sure they are ready to look into it and they are ready to hear it. But as I said, it takes a little bit of time. That's it. So we have to be patient.
There is always a problem, here, that being a huge, vast country and, in the government also people coming from different states and all that, the percolation of the ideas of the senior people or the ministry people takes a little bit of time. You just heard the collector of custom making it so easy that if this was a room and this was, it was a custom zone, you could easily bring in the goods and take it out. But we know, we have been arguing with the government. It seems very easy. But when you have to take out the balance of the goods that you have sold, from the goods you have sold, the valuation is a major problem. So there are issues which the government needs to understand, but they are giving a very patient hearing to the council. They are also, thank God, we have the best of the relations in Delhi. But once again, it takes time in this country, it takes, because we are a democratic country, and that's I would say, a disadvantage of being a democratic country, that it takes time, because somebody goes to the court and says, no, this is not, some interested parties would go to and challenge it, then it would take a little bit of time. But apart from that, very good relations with the government.
I'll give you one example. Thank you. I give you one simple example. The other day we were talking, you feel that why this 2% duty on the polish import, and it has the trading hub which you wanted to make would probably go haywire. Martin, I was talking to you on that line. It was council who, with the consensus of the people, brought the zero duty on polish import. But at that time, we had suggested two things together, the turnover tax regime and the zero duty. Unfortunately, what happened that they didn't bring turnover tax regime and only zero duty was imposed. And this $42 billion or $43 billion exports, what we are showing, how much the polish import was? It was all circular trading which was going on, $22 billion or $20 billion polish imported and re-exported. This is not what government of India wants, and this is what industry don't want that. We are the highest foreign exchange earner for the country, and since last 3 years, since zero duty has gone to 2% duty, we are in the negative. So do you want that to happen? At least I don't wish to be there. on the platform of the council. Being Indian, I don't want that to happen for our industry and for the government of India. And that is the reason that we wanted to bring this. And that is the reason I firmly believe that it needs to be continued, because people try to take disadvantage of it rather than converting into an advantage. And that is what harmed the industry to a great extent. And because of those, I'll go one step further for the knowledge of the audience, that because of that higher export figures which were fictitious, none of the shops which the other industries are getting in this downturn of 2008 and 2012, we are not getting it. Even today, they are not giving us any shops because they feel the industry is growing, and which is not the true.
Understood. No, let me just say this. First of all, I agree with you. We'll talk about the 2% in a minute. But before I do, let me stand corrected. The tax authorities are not thieves. They're our friends.
That's good.
They want to work with us. They want to work with us. And I think that maybe what we need, and the council has been doing a great job communicating with them, although I will say the proof will be in the pudding, but they're cooking the pudding now, so I hopefully we'll have a tasty solution. But I think then the focus then needs to be on education, because the way I see it as an Indian, with offices in Surat, and a Gujarati website this week, if you wish, I don't think that the community of diamond people in India are necessarily taking all of these compliance noises that I'm hearing all that seriously. Bigger companies, okay. So I think we have a big education job. One of the goals of the Rappaport Conference is not just to point out, what I think are boogeymen hiding under our beds, but also to come up with solutions. So the solution of the volume tax is the solution that we need to push for, accept it. We also need to do a lot of education. We had some very good education from here, from ELP, very detailed on the kinds of issues that we are going to be confronting at the end of this year. And that's a blessing that the people here in the community, in the room, can hear about these things and become aware. And I think we have to work very hard to educate people as to what's to be expected of them from illegal compliance, anti-money laundering, and all that. So I think that this issue needs to be addressed continuously, maybe nicer than the way I do, okay? But I'm a tough guy, okay? I like to, push things a little too hard. But it's going to be an issue, and it's going to be a challenge, for us. I'd like to maybe move the discussion to the 2%. The big issue of the 2% to me, in terms of the foreign currency balances and the recycling of diamonds, and the issue of liquidity, first of all, the creation of excess liquidity. And one of the things that came up this morning was, you guys are a very big elephant in the diamond industry. What India does, it's not like the old days. India is a developing country. India is it is the most powerful economic force in the diamond industry. And what you do in terms of rough prices when there's too much liquidity, the speculation of the early 2011, major impact on everyone, everywhere. The fact that the Chinese bought the Indian story. You guys got the Chinese heated up. They were all excited. Prices are going up in 2011. They believed that they could buy diamonds like Americans were buying real estate before the real estate boom. We're going to buy it because it's going to go up. And I think that maybe this, the lack of the 2% tax, according to you, created the environment of the excess liquidity, okay? And that created the higher rough prices, which created the cycle of speculation that then made everything so interesting and so difficult in the end of 2012, which we looked at here. Okay. Now, you're a banker here, right? You're a banker? That's correct. Okay, so tell me something. Why can't you control your money? I mean, just because people export and import and I'm a tough guy. You'll get used to me before the day's over. But come on, if you don't know how to handle your money, then maybe you should lose it all to the diamond guys. But just because people do recycling of diamonds, why are you giving them money? You can't look at their books and see how much they're importing, how much they're exporting, how much their cousins are importing. I mean, there has to be a basis of controlling the banks other than implementing taxation policy. It's a hell of a way to control the banks. So why can't the banks watch their, why can't you control this excess liquidity so you don't screw up the world diamond market with speculators? Here you go. I can't talk, it's even better.
Thank you. No, I think it's a very good point that Martin that you've raised, but you know there are laws in the country that pertain to controlling of liquidity. I think the regulator, the banking regulator, which is the RBI, has been taking a lot of steps in the right direction in order to control or curb the liquidity which has been there in the market. We've actually, in fact, if you really look at the last 2 years, the banking industry per se is not facing excess liquidity. They are short of liquidity. As a system, as a whole, there's about close to almost $20 billion being borrowed from the Reserve Bank of India on a daily basis, on a secured basis. So this is not speculative money. This is money that the banking system borrows against government securities that it's holding in its books. So they go to the regulator every day and they borrow this money from them. And that's only to maintain the kind of liquidity that the system requires, or the customers requires, or the clients or traders or manufacturers, exporters and importers require. So it's really much more complex as an exercise to control the kind of liquidity that we are talking about. A lot of it is coming in from outside. Now, if the government were to clamp down on the routes for money coming in from outside, then again you have this entire set of sort of discomfort which builds in, and people go around saying that India is not open, and so therefore it's not open for business. So it's really a very, very sort of a, it's a razor's edge that the government, in terms of its own policies and what the outcome or objectives of the government is. Having said that, one must remember that India is not a decontrolled currency regime. It's a partially controlled currency regime, and so therefore any Indian is not allowed to hold money in any other currency except in rupees, in Indian rupees, in INR. To a large extent, that kind of takes care of a lot of let's say a lot of liquidity issues. The only people who are allowed to hold foreign currency, and even that has been curbed in the last 2 or 3 months that we've seen through regulations, are exporters who are allowed to hold money in their EEFC account, or which is the exchange earners foreign exchange account. But even that has been curbed to a large extent. So therefore, it's a much larger issue of liquidity. And as I said, the system itself has less liquidity, and it's grappling with some sort of a crisis where the regulator cannot really do a really sustained market action in order to control the variation in the rupee that we've seen against other currencies, only because the market is short of INR or it's short of rupees. So there is actually not plenty of liquidity in the system as we understand.
Is there any solution? And we saw the swing. We went from excess liquidity in the beginning of 2011 that actually disturbed the diamond markets. Now we're at the shortage of liquidity, so this pendulum is swinging. Are there any solutions? Is India over-regulated? Is it under-regulated? I mean, from a banker's perspective. And also, why can't you decide how much to give your clients? Or is it a competitive environment? But tell me if there's any solution to this.
No, the banks do decide, and they have their own policies according to which they decide how much to lend to an industry. Banks like ours, who are sort of based or registered outside, but have a lot of control mechanisms which have been put into place, which include a certain amount of cap on not only just the industry but even the country. So there's only a certain amount that can be lent out as loans to the country as a whole in terms of the country risk that you're taking. But these things are in place. sometimes you do get driven by relationship, and most banks have grown with their customers and with their clients here, and so therefore, to a large extent, while the decision to give a loan to the country is to a company is based upon the finances of the company, but a lot of times one does have to consider relationship into the whole thing, and yeah.
Hello. There are stipulations in India. The RBI has made those stipulations with all the banks that they are supposed to give 10 to 15% of their finances to the export industry. And this being a high value item, it is easier for any bank to reach to that 15% level. That is one part of it. And the second part, about 2% tax and why financing, why they cannot control. This industry, Martin, has grown because of your overseas subsidiaries. My cousin or my brother or somebody is staying there, I'm exporting him. So it is difficult probably sometimes by banks also to identify who are the right people and who are the wrong people. And the other thing is people are smart here. I export to my brother but import in somebody else's company. So they are also not able to find out what is the situation. Because of that the financing was there, but now I believe the bankers are taking proper care, and now if the export-import of policy is happening, they are not probably financing to a large extent.
Go ahead.
I would just like to add, I think our banker friend has described it very efficiently. If you are looking at the speculation that happened in post-2008 crisis, I think the speculation was not fueled by the banks, and especially not fueled by the Indian banks. If there was any fueling done to the speculation, it was in the rough market, and I think the world rough market center is Belgium, and the entire speculation was driven from the rough market and not by the banks. Yes, maybe because the banks in Belgium or within the mining and the rough market in those centers did fuel the speculation. But the speculation started not here. And at the other end here, the demands of the local market were suddenly went up so high that it also helped the speculation grow. Otherwise, what would have happened that if the polish was not being sold here at those high prices, we wouldn't have helped the speculation. But I think it's not right to say the Indian banks fuel the speculation. And from the other end, I see that the bankers have a business to do. In this country and everywhere else, the bankers have a business of financing a trade which is growing. And that's what they did. I don't think there's any blame on the Indian banks to be of any speculation in the industry.
Okay, that's important. And
Just to add to that, just to also give you a little. Sorry. Yeah, it's on. Just to add to that, there is a cap per company which is based upon the bank's net worth that you can lend up to. And there is another cap by the regulator on the maximum that you can give to group companies or related companies. So, and that's probably the reason, as we've seen, that whenever there's been worldwide banking crisis, whether it was in 2008 or whether it was even earlier during the Eastern crisis, Indian banks were completely left out of that. They've held on. They were adequately capitalized, and they did not have excessive loans in speculative areas. So that has worked really very well. I don't think in the current banking scenario, any bank, whether large or small, would be able to go out of its way and to lend for speculative purposes. In fact, the purpose, and there's a lot of monitoring that each bank has to do as to what purpose the loan has been given and how the company is actually using it. So there are end-use monitoring that a bank has to do, and there's no reason to believe they're not doing that.
okay, I just we have to draw to some kind of a conclusion here. I'd like to put two important questions, maybe to everybody as well. Number one is, we feel, or Rapport's perspective is that there is tight money right now, not just in India. I seem to be picking on India too much, right? But not just in India. But there's tight liquidity. And this is affecting diamond prices. It's affecting, there's a lot of inventory and tight liquidity. So the first question is, just how bad is the situation, and Will it continue? And, you know, how do you see the liquidity situation within the diamond industry in India and maybe globally? And the second point is, what's the prognosis? Where are we going from here? Where will we be a year from now? What's going to happen in terms of the diamond industry? There's a lot of changes with De Beers, the sites, people taking sites, people not taking sites. There's a lot of other things beyond the scope of this conversation today happening with Rough and with this and that. But how dangerous is the current situation relative to liquidity? And two, where are we going to go from here? Will this ease up? Will this change? And if, you know, I'd love to hear from the trade, accountants, you're counting everybody's money, so maybe you know something. But maybe we just open it up for discussion here if we could just relate to those two questions. You want me to start? I'd love for you to start. Sanjay,
Martin, the situation you said that is probably dicey. There's a problem. Lot of inventory is there. That's why this liquidity crisis is there. And because of the speculation, people are losing a lot of money. The prices of polish has gone down. Rough is still was at a higher price. So because of that, the liquidity crisis was. And since last 4 months, if you notice, from probably February till today, the consumers were not were reluctant to buy diamond and diamond jewelry all around the world, and particularly in India. In 2008 crisis, India and China could save the diamond industry, but in 2012, India and China are also having a little bit of problem, economic situation. So the consumers are not going. We have made a survey, and it is interesting to know that between the age of 25 to 45 years of ladies, if you ask and give them $10,000 what they want to buy, only 2 or 3 would go to buy the diamond or diamond jewelry. Rest of the people are looking for something else. So that situation we need to change. That is where we come in. That is what you might have noticed, and I was talking to you, the generic promotion of diamond is required. Since 15 to 20 years, De Beers washed their hands away from the generic promotion. Nobody is talking about diamonds. And if you don't talk of diamonds and diamond jewelry, how you are going to sell your product? If De Beers is talking about Forever Mark or Rio Tinto is talking about Nazarana and the International Diamond Board is not happening, with all these things in place to save ourselves, probably we believe that we need to start something, and that is the reason that we want to start the generic promotion and make a hue and cry about the diamond, and whatever manner we can do it. That probably would be the right way to ease the situation a little bit. That is what we believe. And the production is also low now. And I believe that till the manufacturing center or the manufacturers don't make money, no industry in the world can survive. Here what has happened since last many years is that the mining companies are making money, the traders are making money, and the retailers are making money, but the manufacturers are sufferers. So if that situation is persists, the industry cannot survive for a longer period, and this crisis would remain. That is the reason that it is imperative to see that the manufacturers make a little bit of money. Then only the whole industry can survive.
That's,
Where's the money? Show me the money.
okay, so that's from an industry-specific area, but speaking about the general economic scenario here in India and the liquidity scenario here in India, that is tight. We all know that, as I said, about anywhere between $15 to $20 billion are being borrowed every day just to meet the day-to-day requirements from the banking industry. And in the foreseeable future, which is in the next 12 months, our own group research estimates are that this liquidity crisis, so to speak, I wouldn't really say it's crisis, it's being absorbed, and and there are redemptions available with the regulator where you can go and borrow from them. So this situation is likely to remain the way it is. We don't really see too much of easing happening simply because of the huge amount of borrowing that the government needs to do by itself. It's running a deficit financing regime again, and that means that it needs to come, it can't sort of print rupees. That's not the way the regulator is, or the laws of the country currently are allowing it to do. So therefore it goes out into the market and borrows, just like all of you are doing, borrowing from the market, from the banks, etc. And that's likely to continue as long as we do not cut down on the subsidies, we do not bring petroleum product prices up to par, or we do not sort of cut down on, gold imports or whatever is causing all this. So that situation is likely to continue for some more time to come.
How tight are we, Dr. Surana?
I would agree that I think overall there has been a liquidity crunch. Main reason is that last 5 to 7 years, large number of Indian companies have also grown or have tried to grow exponentially. If you look at any sector, you look at infrastructure, you look at power sector, every single group was looking at 5 to 7, 10 times expansion. And the ability to repay has not really been tested because most of the people have borrowed and they've really not started repaying those loans. I mean, many of these loans are probably not as good as what it appears to be, what I understand from the banking sector also. Right now we are saying that NPA is around 2.5 to 3%. The ground level reality is that it could be 8 to 10%. So I think if that is the case, there is going to be liquidity crunch. Then you have the government borrowing. Now that is at a macro level. Coming to the industry, I think the biggest issue I see is that the banks are really financing the working capital. Now when you say working capital, you have inventory and you have receivables. The receivables, in many cases, the quality of the receivable is a big issue because as you rightly said that you may be exporting to a cousin or somebody who is what is really the balance sheet of the person who is buying goods from you? There is very little visibility on that. So banks are essentially financing based on net worth of the Indian company. But really the quality of the underlying assets when you are financing, what is the real value of inventory? What is the real quality of the receivables? You have exported to, say, Mr. A in Hong Kong. Does Mr. A have the capacity to pay that? And that is why this whole circular trading and a lot of things, unless there is some qualitative evaluation brought in, I mean, if I'm exporting to Walmart and that receivable you can easily discount. But Mr. A, which is a proprietary concern in Hong Kong or Dubai, what is the quality of his receivable? If nobody looks at it, it will be an issue in my view.
If I may just make my observation on that, I think the bank finance in India has been very matured, very sensible, and very responsible. The industry is like this since last 40 years. It's very difficult to, on one side, it's very difficult to, to judge to whom we are exporting. But the best thing is that most of our finances are on the receivables and all of them are on export basis. So that's one kind of a safety for the banks. Otherwise, the industry has been like this. The banks are matured enough. They can go out and find out, about the credit worthiness of the importers abroad, and it's not at all difficult in this time of the world. We are also in the ECGC. We have now come out with a scheme wherein the banks, the ECGC would only finance those or guarantee those exports where they have enough information through various agencies worldwide, and I think the banks would also follow that. Martin, you asked about what do you see in about years' time of the industry. I think it's very difficult to say because this is the first time in the last 5 decades that we are going through a period where where the slack period has been for a larger time than before. I think the Indian industry is relatively strong enough because the manufacturers are not. There is not much of manufacturing. There is very little on the demand side, I agree to that, but I think that's only very temporary. I cannot say, it would only, you need a rabbi or a sadhu to tell you when it is going to improve. But I think that the inventory levels are going down. The banks are also very sincere. The manufacturers, the fag end of the manufacturers and the weak companies are really disappearing, going out of business and all that. So we will have a very, very strong industry in 2030 onwards. And I think I see a very good time because if you see the supply-demand ratio, the supply-demand chart of the rough diamonds, I think the next 5 years or 10 years are going to be very good for the industry.
Excellent. I just wanted to ask our friends with the regulators, are the SOPs going bye-bye? Are we going to get to a stage where the diamond industry no longer needs all kinds of help and subsidies and everything? Because looking at the crowding out by government lending, and and the industry getting stronger, hopefully, and the idea that we should just sell our inventory, get some money, and get out of the liquidity by increasing demand is a good one. That's exactly the right business approach, okay? But the question is government subsidies and government help and all that stuff. Are we going to get weaned off? Will the diamond industry be forever based on needing all kinds of subsidies from the government, or is the government just going to kick us out anyways and we'll be on our own like a regular business? In other words, how important are subsidies to the diamond industry? Will they remain, and what happens if they're gone?
In fact, in our last interactions with the
It's working.
in our last interactions with the government also, we had this that, when is it that the industry will stop needing the subsidy? So if you're coming to ask for a subsidy, and therefore we had put it across that no, we are not asking for a subsidy. We are here to contribute more to, but in a more effective manner, such that it reduces harassment. So, the government is open to that. Government understands that. So it's not that we are now going and asking for subsidy. We are asking for a facilitative scheme, which will actually result into higher contribution by the industry coming across. Having said that, we also need to understand that whenever there has been a crisis situation, the government has stepped in and brought in stimulus schemes. And the Indian government has brought in stimulus schemes through tax reduction or certain other subsidies and things as and when it has been required. So from a regulatory perspective, they are aware of the situations, they are aware of the positioning, and they do keep looking into these aspects.
Yeah, I mean, and just to add on Nishant's point, if you see, you have these opportunities coming up, like Dr. Surana said, you have safe harbors coming up. You push in for your volume-based taxation. You have APAs coming up to negotiate your cross-border pricing. All in all, if you push in somewhere, and of course, we all know that the industry is in need of these reforms, I'm sure something will work out. It's just that you need a little bit of extra push on that.
I think government subsidy is not what we are asking, but when they come to know that the industry is suffering, if interest subvention of 2% is given to other industry and the workers are probably laid off the job, when they come to realize this, they want to give it. But these false export figures, as I said earlier, are detrimental to that. And we also require all these shops which the other industry are being given. That is what we are also trying.
I'd like to, go ahead.
If I may add, one of the thing which is definitely possible, which is there in the regulation, is the service tax, which we spoke about earlier. I think we just did a calculation that on an average, for a site holder, it is working out to 0.4 to 0.5% of his turnover. So if you are doing like a turnover of 1,000 crores, it is almost 4 to 5 crore rupees. So that refund, although there are already provisions, but in practice to get refund is really very difficult unless you are an SEZ unit, like Siege unit or whatever. I think that is something which probably can be really pushed through.
It's 12:32. I'm on Hungarian Jewish time, I guess. I'm really late, and I apologize for that. We're going to obviously, I think what we're going to do is cancel the coffee break. Puja's the boss here.
Let it be tea break.
What?
Let us keep the tea.
Let us keep the tea break. Okay. We do want to have this thing, and maybe we'll figure out how to handle the lunch situation and our great presentation on synthetic diamonds coming up, which is really very, very important for everybody. What I would like to do is end on a positive note and summarize what I've heard here. First of all, the situation is not so bad. Government regulators in the industry are talking. We still haven't succeeded in a volume tax, but if we press hard enough, we may just get there. In the event of an emergency, the Indian government is going to help the industry so they don't lose jobs. So the sky is not going to fall upon us. Tremendous increase in the regulatory environment with regards to compliance is to be expected. And everyone needs to know what they need to do to fulfill compliance requirements, even for your American customers, but forget about American customers, just for the local market. And maybe one of the most important things was what Sanjay was saying. If we look at the liquidity problems, the way out is to increase demand for diamonds and just sell more of the stuff. And I think that that's an important point that needs to go forward this afternoon's discussions about branding. And also, Nancy Reagan talking about drugs was saying, just say no. And perhaps the manufacturers, if they want to see a profit, have to say no occasionally. But the outlook is not so bleak like I started off with my controversial statements to wake everybody up. And we do look forward to having a good relationship with the industry and promoting good education so that we can all be in compliance with the fine, kind people at the tax authorities. Okay.
I think about the manufacturers saying no, I think India has shown the way in 2008. If the manufacturers are shy of saying no, I think the industry will take its own course. And I've said that in the past also, if the manufacturers are pushed too much to a corner, they are bound to rebel like they did in 2008.
Bravo. Okay, thank you all very much.
Thank you. Thank you. On behalf of the Rappaport Group, we would like to present a small token of appreciation to Dr. Suresh Surana. We'd like to give it to our ELP partners, Mr. Ajit Tolani and Nishant Shah.
Okay, pictures.
Dr. Suresh Surana. No, we have a few more. Mr. Sanjay Kothari. Mr. Vasant Mehta. And to Mr. Manish Jaloka.
One thing I want to say. One thing I want to say. I've known Vasant since we started 10 years. Since we started about 10 years ago. I've known Vasant since we started 10 years ago in Sanjay, and I think everybody should realize one thing. I'm very attacking and all that, but these people have devoted a tremendous amount of their time, effort to promoting the Indian industry, voluntary time. And I think we should recognize also, they speak at the conference and everything, but the Indian diamond industry is blessed with the Gem and Jewelry Export Promotion Council people, them here now and those from previous times as well, who have donated and devoted a tremendous amount of their time and attention to helping the industry. I've seen it from afar and from up close. I think we should just applaud their efforts and recognize tremendous efforts they make on behalf of the industry.